Hey YouTubers, welcome back to Jack of All Trades. I've got another DIY video for you today that's going to involve the Buick Gran Sport here. Recently I noticed that the fuel gauge was pegged out all the way completely full, and actually it was well past full. And no matter how much gas I put in it or how far I ran it, it never changed. So they told me there was an issue with the fuel reporting system, the sensing system, either the gauge, the gas tank, or the lines, or something was wrong with it. So anyway, I ended up finding out that I needed a new fuel sending unit, but what I want to show you here is specifically how I troubleshot that to figure out that I needed a new fuel sending unit. And also I'm going to show you how I replaced the fuel sending unit here in this car. This is a 72 Buick Gran Sport. This method is going to apply to probably most A bodies, early 70s, late 60s. But if it doesn't specifically, if you don't specifically have an A body, the science is still fairly the same as far as the fuel sending unit and how it reports to the gauge. So first off, I'm just going to show you how I troubleshot and what the testing that I did and how I read those testings to determine the issue. Okay, so check this out. All right, so I think the very first thing you should probably check is going to be the ground for the sending unit. These older cars, they get corroded. There is a ground that hooks right to the frame. So let's go ahead and check that out first. All right, so I have my car lifted up so it's a little easier. I can't actually squeeze under here when it's not lifted up. So if you come to the back of the tank, you're going to see here, you're going to have the fuel lines for the sending unit, and then you're going to have vent lines. And there's going to be 3 vent lines, and then I'm going to have a fuel sending to the engine, and then a return vapor line. The supposed to be black cable coming out of the sending unit is going to actually attach to the frame, and you can barely see it here. But the first thing you should test is you should unscrew this, unconnect it from the frame, clean this with a wire brush, okay, and then connect it back to the frame, and then go check the gauge. Now keep in mind, you have to have the key in the ignition, and it has to be turned on, engine not running, but the ignition has to be turned on for you to get a gauge reading. Okay, so check that first, and if that doesn't fix it, then we're going to move to the signal wire. There's only 2 wires coming out of this sending unit, so if you have a good ground, then you're going to go to the sending wire next. Okay, so the back of the tank has the signal wire. Okay, not all units might not be like this, but for mine it's going to be the back of the tank, and it goes up to the trunk area, where you can see it comes in and it connects to this little connector that goes up to the gauge. Now what I've done here is I've disconnected this, so this took the sending unit out of the equation, and I'm just going to apply a ground to this wire, which I've connected here to the frame. And what this should do is it should turn the gauge all the way back down to empty. So let's go see what we have. All right, and as you can see, the gauge is on empty, or pretty close to empty. I think it's the angle we're at here. But the key is on, and it is at empty. Now, if I went back and unhooked that ground, it would go right back to full. So the sending unit actually measures the resistance, okay? And to actually tell you how that works specifically, there's a rheostat that is in the sending unit. And a rheostat just turns a mechanical input into an electrical signal, and it's measured in resistance. So the float that goes up and down on the sending unit, depending on how much fuel you have, is going to send a signal in a unit of measurement of resistance to the gauge. The gauge is going to read that and give you an output there on the needle to tell you if you have a full or empty gas tank. So by me going to ground, it's telling that it's going directly to ground. It's telling me it has full resistance, okay, and it's going to go to empty. Now with no resistance at all, it's going to go right back to full. So by me checking this out and seeing this, that's telling me that either the sending unit is stuck at full, or the signal's bad. Maybe the signal wire that attaches to the top of the sending unit is off. It could be a number of things, but this test right here tells me that there's nothing wrong with the wire that goes up to the gauge, and there's nothing wrong with the gauge. So we've taken 2 of the 3 parts out of the equation, pretty much. So what you could do further here is you could hook alligator clips to the other end. You could hook alligator clips to the other end here, the one that goes to the sending unit, and the ground on the other side, and you can measure resistance from there. Okay, and it's probably going to give you an infinite amount. It's going to be really high resistance. So what we're going to do now is, now that we've troubleshot this and we know that the sending unit has something wrong with it, we're going to go ahead and drop the tank and see, well, what we can find out. All right, so we're going to drop the tank down now so we can see the sending unit. There's going to be 2 straps that hold the tank up. They're mounted front and rear. I would advise taking the rear straps off first. Spray them with some penetrating oil if you have to in advance. But the filler neck for the gas tank is going to hold the tank up, so you can remove the rear ones first. Use my Frankenstein impact gun here. Okay, now the front ones. All right, so I'm going to loosen these up, but I'm not going to take them all the way down. If you'll notice on these, they're pretty long bolts, so you could lower it pretty well with how long they are. I'm going to lower mine a bit, and then I'm going to hook the hoses. All right, so I went ahead and did you guys the liberty of not having to watch the past hour of me struggling with that. So the bolts were pretty hard to get off. The slept one was. I had some restrictions because of the exhaust, but to show you what I'm dealing with here, I don't know if you can see this here right now, but there's clips on each one that retain the nut, and it keeps you from getting a wrench all the way on it. It's not a full-size nut, and I didn't do myself any favor by not cleaning off the bolts before I started on them. You could probably clean the bolts off and have better luck than me, but I got them off. And I'll probably replace this hardware with some better stuff. But as you can see here, the straps are off. I have a stand holding up the gas tank, and I was lucky enough to be able to move the straps to either side, so that's going to allow me to get it down. So now all I have to do is undo the 3 vents, hoses, 1, 2, and 3 out of your sight, and then the main fuel line and the return vapor hose, and then at that point I can drop it down. All right, so the last thing you want to do is you have all the hoses disconnected. You want to remove the ground to the sending unit. All right, don't lose that screw. All right, so everything's disconnected. At this point, you're just gonna lower it down. I'm just gonna lower it down to my chest and wheel it out. Now, I'm gonna say if this is still full of gas, if you weren't able to remove the gas, you're gonna want to use a jack. Alright, not so fast. You want to unhook the signal wire to the sending unit. No build sheet, unfortunately. Couldn't get that lucky. All right, let's go over some details here. All right, so you saw that we got the tank down. I just want to show you some quick things here in case you're preparing for this. You do have a 1/4-inch vent hose that hooks up to the sending unit, and then you also have what I believe is 3/8. Let's see here. Yes, 3/8. So 3/8. Both of these are about 6 inches long. The vent hoses, they're also for the vent tubes. They're also 3/8, and they're about 3 to 4 inches, 3.5, 4 inches long. These are all rotted really bad, to the point some of them even broke. So I took those off. So anyway, that's something you might need to know if you're going to replace the hardware. This is a 9/16 bolt, and it is 4 inches long. There's not a whole lot of clearance up there for this, so I don't think you can get away with much longer than maybe 4.5 inches, and then it might hit the sheet metal. Okay, something we're going to do here real quick. We have the new sending unit, and I want to put that down here. It's always a good idea to test new parts before you put them on if you can. We got the new sending unit here. We want to just make sure that it works. So it works on resistance, and so we're going to change to the ohms there, and we have resistance if you can see the meter, and we have the signal, the signal mode right there, little knob, and then we have the ground. Okay, and let's see here. Okay, how can I do this? Let's see if that's connected. Okay, and so changing the float all the way to max should put us about 90 ohms. That's what it's rated at, is 90 ohms. So we're pretty close there, 93. And then taking it all the way down to the bottom should put us close to 0. It's going to take forever to get down there. All right, so I don't have any concern that this works. 90 at the top. It's going down real slow, so yes, it's probably going to go to 0. So anyway, this works. You can tell that the resistance changes as the flow changes position, so that's good enough for me. We're going to put this in the tank now. I would advise cleaning the top of the tank off first to keep the dirt out, and we'll go ahead and fit this in. Okay, so we got the tank pulled in here into the garage. I got the vent hose all replaced. They were pretty rotted out. I got them set up for easy install once I get it back under the car. And just looking at this tank, I don't think this is a factory tank. I could be wrong, but there was no pads on the top. There was no build sheet, unfortunately. I guess that's not guaranteed to be there though. And it has some writing on it, something RMCO, and it's kind of hard to read the rest of it, but maybe someone knows and could put it in the comment section below. Kind of interesting. But it might be an aftermarket tank, or it could just be an original that's been off for some reason. Okay. Let's go ahead and do the reveal here. I'm kind of curious to see how this sending unit looks. We're going to go ahead and reinstall the new unit as well. There we go. All right, so the kit that I got comes with a new ring, so I could have destroyed that, I guess, if I had to. All right, well, I don't know enough to tell you whether this is a remake or not, but it definitely doesn't look like the one we got in there now. Sock is pretty crunchy, 90 ohms. All right, let's go ahead and get the new one in there. Get all this debris away. The O-ring didn't look too bad. Got a new one here. I've lubed up a little bit. That seemed to work better. So pushing down on a tip and kind of in the direction you need, and then pounding down on it is what did it there. Got all three of them in. So I think you want to spread the pounding out here, because this ring floats around inside this channel. So you want to get it even if you can, because it might tip out. I'm just going to move this around until I get enough. Okay. All right, so I've cleared it. All right, so this will be for the signal wire. We got the new ground here, and this looks pretty good. There was a tab here and here which fit in the groove, so it had to be like that. There was no way you could put it in wrong, which was great. All right, so let's get it back in the car. Signal wire. Okay. Ground wire is where it needs to go, ready to go. All right, so I just made some real makeshift pads, cushion pads, since there wasn't any there at all. I know the ones from the factory weren't much more than paper anyway. All right, so you can't hook the signal wire up too early, and be careful not to damage the connector on the inside. All right, so don't hook this up too early. It's not going to be long enough to accommodate the whole movement. Just so you know, this is not heavy at all. The hard part is going to be blindly hooking that signal wire up. Okay, that's good to go. All right. Nope. All right, once you get to this point, don't put everything back together. Hook up your ground for your sending unit. You already have your signal wire hooked up. You need to check to make sure it works properly. If it doesn't, you don't want to put everything back together. You want to find out what's wrong. All right, so here's the moment of truth. You have the sending unit back in the tank. The tank is under the car. The signal wire is hooked up and the ground is hooked up. The ground wire is hooked up from the sending unit. All your connections are reconnected. Key in the ignition. As you can see here, it's full. We're going to go ahead and switch it on. And it should have almost no gas. All right. Yeah, it looks like that's vindication there. We put it in correctly and we're ready to go. So we're just going to button everything up now and we'll be done. All right, well, that wraps up another little fun project with the Buick. We had issues with the gas gauge not showing the right amount of gas. It was completely full, well past full. So we did some troubleshooting. We discovered it was a sending unit that's in the gas tank, and we replaced it. So hopefully you learned something there. If you needed to see that, maybe it helps you plan a similar project. If not, hope you just liked watching it. If you want to see more videos like this, just hit the like button down there and hit subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.